Good morning. My name is Sarah Cridland, and when I started at ESU last semester, I had a psych professor who was an Air Force veteran. At one point, he did the psych eval portion of the discharge evals to send the servicemen home after they were going to leave the service. And he discharged a guy who was perfectly fine. He had no symptoms of PTSD at the time. But then a couple of months later, he ended up killing his whole family and then himself because he had PTSD. Many are discharged like this, and then they end up experiencing symptoms, and they don't know who to turn to or where to go. I myself am going into the Navy, and it terrifies me to think that this could happen to someone I know or even to myself. This needs to be addressed. We need to improve veterans' accessibility to and the quality of their mental health care. Julia Relevant states in her article in Everyday Health on PTSD that 11 to 20% of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom veterans have PTSD, and about 12% of Gulf War veterans do. Veterans are 5 times more likely to have depression than their civilian counterparts and 15 times more likely to have PTSD. According to the National Veteran Suicide Prevention Annual Report, the number of veteran suicide deaths has increased from 5,787 in 2005 to 6,139 in 2017. The annual number of veteran suicide deaths has exceeded 6,000 since 2008. In a study mandated by Congress as part of a review for veteran healthcare services, they found a substantial unmet need for mental health services among veterans from the Iraq and Afghanistan war eras. There's not enough help to transition back into civilian life. PTSD and other mental health issues may not be detected or even there at discharge. They can appear later with a trigger. In his article in the Military Times, Leo Shane states that soldiers and veterans are undeniably resilient, both by selection and by training, but they are not superhuman. 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan vets have PTSD or major depression. In a study done by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, only 50% of veterans who need mental health services will receive this treatment. But why? According to the National Veterans Foundation, the following reasons were listed: personal embarrassment about service-related mental disabilities, long wait times to receive treatment, shame over needing to seek this treatment, fear of being seen as weak, the stigma associated with mental health issues, a lack of understanding or awareness about these issues and the treatment options, logistical problems such as long travel distances, concerns over the type of care they would receive at a VA, and the demographic barriers and false perceptions based on age and gender. While the VA does give good care, it can be improved. We don't need to make a whole new system. We just need to improve what's already there. VAs, first of all, need more healthcare workers, preferably with prior or current military service, because veterans are more likely to trust someone who's gone through the same thing as them, open up to them, and will be more likely to stick with treatment if the healthcare worker understands. This also opens up more appointment slots because there will be more people. All of these healthcare workers need to be trained in evidence-based therapy. This has been proven to work with mental health issues and can reduce hesitancy for treatment and medication. A lot of VAs have implemented this, but not all of them have, and the treatment is not the same at every VA. That's the issue. You need to have the same treatment at all of the VAs. Just by talking about mental health, we can reduce the stigma surrounding it. We can let the veterans know they are not weak for having this. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with seeking help. And it's there for everyone, whether they think their problems are big or small. The healthcare workers need to be proactive. They need to schedule follow-ups. They need to call the veterans to make sure that they're sticking with their treatments and their medications. And by having more healthcare workers, this means there's more individualized treatment and care. Now, this could go one of two ways. If we don't implement this care, it could turn out like it did in October 2017 to November 2018, when there were 19 suicides on VA campuses across the United States. A lot of people were worried that this was a gruesome form of protest by veterans to highlight how little help they were receiving in their time of need from the VA. Now, it makes it more real to have a name to put to this faceless body count. A 32-year-old former Army Sergeant John Toombs committed suicide after he was kicked out of the program for breaking the rules, like picking up his medication 20 minutes late. 55-year-old Marine Colonel Jim Turner hung himself in his service uniform with a note on his body that said, "I bet if you looked at 22 suicides a day, you will see the VA screwed up in 90% of them." 33-year-old Marine Corps vet Justin Miller committed suicide after 4 days in the VA mental health unit. The VA didn't cause his suicide, his sister told the Washington Post, but they could have done more to prevent that, and that's what's just so maddening. But it could go another way if we were able to implement this, like it did for Dawn, who was an Army vet from Iraq. She saw heavy combat over in Iraq, which was just normal over there for her. When she came home, everything was fine. She was just happy to be home like so many others who had served overseas. But then she started getting frustrated and angry with her family. She either didn't sleep or she slept too much. She had a lot of irrational anger, like even screaming at her shoe for not tying correctly. She did a lot of driving overseas, and then when she came home, she couldn't drive across bridges. She could barely drive without freaking out. She helped a lot of people coming home through her National Guard unit, and then she decided that it was finally her turn to seek treatment. She had a hard time with her first counselor because her first counselor had never served, but she was able to find a counselor that she did like and that she did trust. She has been seeing a psychiatrist now and has been taking her medication. She's been able to go to nursing school. Before, she couldn't even take her son to ball games because of the crowds or go to fireworks shows because of the noise, but now she can. While we can't all get VA reform done on our way home, we can do little things that make a big difference. If you see a homeless veteran, don't just walk past them. Make eye contact or even smile. Acknowledge them, notice them, remind them that they are still human, and remind them that they are not forgotten or forsaken.